Let's start then. Yet presented. This is just summary. And while doing like that, while engaged in that controlling of the senses, regulating of the life airs within the body, and withdrawing the mind from contemplating material subjects, hearing this message of Srimad Bhagavatam, one should fix one's mind on the form of the Supreme Lord. Now that's where we ended up last night. So what's a preview of what's about to happen is he's going to describe a very preliminary, even that process of meditation through the Ashtanga yoga system is not the highest form of instruction, it's a preliminary instruction. Likewise, for persons that do not have a personal conception of God, he provides what we're just now going to be hearing is how to form a conception of God, even a temporary set-up conception of God, an imaginary conception of God, just by seeing God within nature, as in pantheism. Pantheism is to see all the wonders of nature in relation to the parts of the universal body of God. And it's called imaginary in this sense because the energies of creation are sometimes manifest and sometimes unmanifest, but God is eternal, so this sometimes manifest, sometimes unmanifest form is temporary. In that sense, it's imaginary. It's not just like a total figment of imagination, not that kind, but temporary. And there's, aside from this temporary feature of the universe, there's an eternal spiritual form. And the message that we're going to hear is, for those that don't have a personal conception of God, there's some sense of something that's supreme, but such individuals are not sure what is the supreme. A preliminary assist is combined with controlling the senses, focusing the mind, contemplating, seeing God within nature, this message of pantheism. It's a method to assist one to transit from no conception of God to a personal conception of God. And then comes the next chapter, the form of God within the heart, Paramatma, and then the personal feature of the Supreme Lord in his loving exchanges with his devotees, Bhagavan feature. So this is the transit between the impersonal and personal. It's that preliminary stage. So, Sukadeva Goswami says, one's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature, and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. If one can rectify such conceptions by the relation of Vishnu, and thus become pacified by cleansing the dirty things created by them. So, an important part of any process of elevation is addressing our dearmost friend, the mind, and bringing the mind to a position of goodness. Bhagavad Gita teaches us, and throughout all of the Vedic literatures, same model is there, that there are three modes of nature. The mode of goodness is elevating. The mode of ignorance takes one furthest down, and the in-between mode is the mode of passion. The mode of passion is the mode of doing and creating and intense activity and attachment to the fruits of those intense activities. And one becomes attached to the fruits of one's activities, one then experiences this pulling down of frustration and anger and destruction, because I lost what I had achieved, or I didn't even get what I wanted to achieve, and so frustration, anger, destruction, moroseness, depression, sadness, and darkness. Passion and ignorance are very prevalent in the material world. So the process of
Hare Krishna, bro, we can't hear.
by bringing the
Yes,
mind to subjects that are going to situate us is being recommended. Specifically from the previous verse, it's meditation upon the form of Vishnu, and now he's going to begin to emphasize, even before the form of Vishnu, who is the Lord of the heart, just the expansions of the energies of Vishnu, because the Lord in the heart, he's controlling all the material energies. Maya Dyakshena Prakriti Suyate Satcharacharam. The Chara and the Achara, the non-moving and the moving living entities, they're all made up, their bodies are made up of Prakriti, material nature, and there's this Lord of the heart, Vishnu, is controlling, he's supervising the movements and the non-movements of matter. So by contemplating the features of matter in relation to the one who's controlling them, you can meditate on the one who's controlling them. That's the idea behind pantheism. That's now, he's recommending to Shukadeva Goswami, for just preliminary stage, let us now consider how God is manifesting himself through his various potencies. And Bhagavad Gita teaches us that the potencies of the Supreme Lord are unlimited. And those material potencies are just a spark of the total potency of the Supreme Lord. There's the spiritual potency also. The material potencies, boop. Yeah. But even contemplating those potencies, material potencies, one can get a sense of the omnipotent Supreme. So, now just read a bit. This is to make the bridge between impersonalism and personalism. Prabhupada writes, impersonalists think of themselves as liberated souls, but they have no knowledge of the transcendental personal feature of the absolute truth. So, the position, very well. The position of impersonalism is reached, one of the processes is the neti-neti process. That is, one begins to search intellectually. What is it that is supreme? And then you start ruling out, well, it's not that drum over there. It's a nice drum, but it's not supreme. And you can go one thing after another thing. This body, it's definitely here today and gone tomorrow. So what else? My wealth, here today, gone tomorrow. So what else? And you just eliminate. It's not my mind, it's not my intelligence, it's not this, it's not that, it's not that, it's not that. So what is it that's eternal? It's not all those things. You have yet to identify the positive by ruling out the negative, what it's not. The impersonalism path is intellectually ruling out, understanding what are the divisions of matter and saying the Supreme is not any of those things. So the positive form is not yet identified. So persons who reach the conclusion of impersonalism, or God is beyond all these temporary things. That's my realization. Beyond all these material things, and I'm part of that which is beyond all these material things. So what Prabhupada is writing here is that persons who have attained that state, their consciousness is still avashuddha, or impure, avashuddha buddhaya, impure intelligence, because they have not yet understood what that may be what spirit or the Supreme is not, but what is the positive feature they do not know. So the Bhagavatam language tells us that this is an incomplete form. It's putting it in nice language. It's an incomplete stage of realization. So this method that Shukadeva Goswami is offering is a method of giving some positive conception of a spiritual supreme person just through material nature. It's the pantheism is the bridge from impersonalism to personalism. That's the message. And when that personalism begins to awaken, then a service attitude also begins to awaken. It goes like this. It's very simple. Prabhupada had such a gift of genius to make complicated things very simple. He said that when we can understand God is very great and I am very small, the natural next step is, therefore I should serve Him. And our lives are like that. If there was notification, the phone rang and Ram Shraddha picked up the phone and the message was that the governor of Illinois wanted to come and attend Ram Shraddha's home program. He heard that he wanted more people to come, so he decided to, if it's okay, could I come? That would be exciting. And, we would receive such a person with respect and dignity, deserving his position, or something. So whether in the presence of a great personality, like I was last Friday at Harvard Divinity School, and I don't know, Krishna made the arrangement, but I was a panelist with about 150 highly educated people in the audience. And when it was my turn to speak, I said, frankly, I'm in awe of the collective brilliance of the constellation of brilliance of the persons assembled here. And, what am I going to speak before all of you who are so learned? It's just, when you're in the presence of a very pious person, some persons just ooze of piety, and you don't even have to know who they are. Just to be in their presence, you feel this is a very pious soul. and it brings respect. So, what to speak of God? Bhagavan, one who possesses all opulences, all knowledge, all strength, all beauty, all fame, all renunciation. So, when one gets not just an intellectual, but in your heart some understanding of there's a supreme person above us all, you want to serve. We'd serve the governor, we would certainly serve God. And so that's the idea. This is a bridge to help those that don't have a conception, a positive conception, to have preliminary. So the chapter is called First Step in God Realization. Following that is then meditation upon Paramatma. Following that is the personal feature of the Supreme and the way of serving Him. O King, by the system of remembrance and by being fixed in the habit of seeing the all-good personal conception of the Lord, one can very soon attain devotional service under His direct shelter. Just like in chanting, there's those of us that are regularly chanting, we all have the experience of being distracted from chanting. There goes the mind, and 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 there goes the mind. That's a product of the influence of the mode of passion, distraction, and laziness, or this not feeling the enthusiasm, etc. So that's ignorance. The influence of these modes of nature are there pervasively. Not just, a certain class of people experience those things. All living entities experience those things, and all varieties of life are created by the different mixture of those modes. And both gross and subtle forms by the modes of nature, and the subtle activity are contemplations. When one gets the body of a dog, it's a spirit soul, but when in the body of a dog, dogs do dog things. Dogs wag their tails and they bark and they do dog things because they're in a dog body. They're just impelled by the covering. It's not what a soul does, is bark and wag tails. It's the material energy that's influencing, and the soul is animating that gross body and also the subtle body. So what we're experiencing in this, whether it's in the heavenly realm or this realm or the lower realm, it's an embodied form where the modes of nature are strongly influencing. The message that we're hearing is this method of, what's needed is to bring an elevating and purifying agent. The elevating agent is that which induces goodness. So we're going to hear Shukadeva Goswami say the struggles with one's lower nature, anger, lust, greed, enmity, pride, jealousy, struggles against that lower nature are relieved when the quality of goodness becomes more prominent. And then behaviors that go along with those qualities. The goal, he's indicating to the king, is to get to the position where you're completely aloof from the modes of nature, you're fixed upon the Supreme, and then you go to the Supreme. No more taking another birth in the material realm. To do that without a personal conception of the Supreme, Prabhupada refers to Bhagavad Gita chapter 12, very troublesome. very troublesome for those who are embodied, and that's pretty much everybody here. There may be some other beings that aren't, but for those of us that are embodied, it's very troublesome. And so Krishna is recommending in Bhagavad Gita fixing the mind upon a personal feature. The graduate study is to say, here's how you can do it. And a preliminary phase through pantheism. It's not the highest, but it leads to the next, it leads to the next. The fortunate king, Maharaj Parikshit, inquired further.
Pause here. We definitely had like 4 questions from yesterday. Maybe we can take up 1 or 2. But prior to the questions from yesterday, two things here. I definitely like devotees to say something, or I'd like to hear from the devotees if they learned something from today or if they appreciated it. And the other part is it's a very sad news to hear that one of our members, His Grace Sanatana Goparaj Prabhu, has met with an accident. He has an head injury. It's very troublesome, even at a very elderly age, to have that. Let us all pray to our dear Lordship Shri Radha Shyamasundar that may he recover well and may he continue in his service, in his wonderful service of chanting and wonderful service of reading and Srila Prabhupada's books and rendering devotional service. Let us all chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra once for Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Although we are sad to hear that, let's continue with the rest of the session today. Anybody would like to say something based on today's discussion?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, just one thought.
Yes. Yes,
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji. So Prabhu, like the dog can't control any of its body movements or its desires. Um, Soul is there, but it's still the body has taken the dominance. So I mean, probably many of the human beings also who are being governed by the ignorance and most most part of the human being which are being driven by the Raja Tattva also. Probably it is very difficult for them also to control any of their movements or desires. Is it so, Prabhu?
You got it absolutely right, Mataji. Very well said. Most human beings are just uh, paving the way for themselves to become animals because, uh, of course, we as human beings cannot control. But like as you gave the very nice example, the male dog sees the female dog does something. What do? We do the same thing. The one dog sees another dog coming into its territory and starts barking. We also say if somebody gets into our house or gets into say this is my work, don't get into my work, you take care of yours, don't get into mine, etc. We are also territorial in nature. We are just paving the way for ourselves to become dogs and as yeah, very nicely said. Control the mind, as Maharaj just said. It is unless and until one is cleansed by the touch of Vishnu, by the dint of service to Vishnu or the Supreme Lord, nothing else can happen. We'll just go with the mode of passion and ignorance. Very rightly said. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Anybody else would like to say anything more to this?
Hare Krishna, Ji, Dandavat Pranam.
Yes, Vivek.
Yes, bro, very nice class. So, initially, Maharaj spoke about pantheism. I mean, this is adding on to the purports and verse which is in discussion. So he introduces pantheism, how people see God as part of nature, and that is again from impersonalism to pantheism. He mentions that pantheism is a bridge between impersonalism and personalism. That is one. And then another thing is obviously he mentioned that her friend mind is to be cleansed, and that is the whole activity of all spiritual practices. So that is another thing. And I like the fact that Maharaj appreciated Srila Prabhupada here, how Srila Prabhupada makes all complicated things very easy to understand. And it's the same for me also, Prabhu, because even I also can't understand all these things. And Srila Prabhupada is making things easy, and also many other devotees also try to make these philosophical concepts easy for us to understand by giving various examples, analogies, and all of that. So that is good. And Maharaj brought about the important fact that we should understand that God is great, I am small. The moment we understand that, automatically the obvious next step is that we should serve Him. What should we do? We should serve Him. So that is a good thing. And Maharaj gave a wonderful example of how he was a panelist in one of the institutions, and he also mentioned that fact in the lecture. So, and he also mentions that we have to have that understanding that God is great in our heart, not just as a mental understanding. Also, it should be in the heart. And Maharaj spoke about how, I mean, this probably one or two questions may arise from here, Prabhu. That distraction while chanting is because the mode of passion, and laziness and not being enthusiastic while chanting is stemming from the mode of ignorance. So how can we probably reduce this and improve our chanting and any other spiritual activity? That is one. And adding on to Mataji's question, Mataji probably try meant that if obviously there are animalistic tendencies in us, and you also mentioned that the touch of Vishnu would help us to elevate ourselves. So for the common mass of people who are driven by animalistic tendencies, how do they get rid of it, Prabhu? How do they improve from that to human and then to being devotees? Hare Krishna.
I feel so we totally have six questions now. You
Oh,
asked the fifth, how to reduce distraction, and I'll come to the last one. How do the common folks, people in the world, get rid of this rajas and tamas? This this was the reason why the Hare Krishna movement was inaugurated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and propagated by Srila Prabhupada. Every time we on this, I mean, like every human being likes to enjoy when they're in the conditioned mode, and even in the liberated mode, it's concomitant factor. It's not that we have to keep up enjoyment, and that's why when the Sankirtana movement goes on the road, when somebody is singing, somebody else on the road says, "Wow, it's such a nice music." They appreciate the music, not necessarily the names in the music. They don't appreciate Krishna, Rama, Hare, etc. But even by appreciating something related to the Supreme Lord, people like it. So it becomes very natural in that way. Second, Srila Prabhupada propagated further in the world Ratha Yatra. So when the deity comes out, the deity does, and people don't go to the temple to see the deities, but when the deity comes out, peop and people see the deity, people walk in front or behind the deity, some Sukriti is coming up, the Bhakti-unmukha Sukriti is coming up, and that helps them to decrease it for the common folks. In general, it is said that for a person to be favorable, the society has to be structured such that they can either knowingly or unknowingly contribute something for the pleasure of God. That was the purpose of the Dharma Shastras, like the Manu Dharma Smriti, the Agnivalkya Dharma Smriti, etc. And unfortunately, we don't have, I mean, like the Indian Constitution does have something, it has taken some elements from it, but not the core essence of it here. So it is a challenge. So for the common folks, in, for most of us, to actually get attracted to the Supreme Lord requires a lot of effort from those, especially who have recognized the value of the Supreme Lord and yet are not there. When those who are in this tatastha part, the in between state, when they try to help those who are totally ignorant, the Supreme Lord helps, especially the those who are struggling for with that distraction and ignorance. He helps them. Number one, and he also bestows his mercy upon others. This is the secret of the Sankirtana movement, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That uh, help by helping others, we help our own self. And but our motive in our heart is not that I am the savior of others. My motive in my heart is I like to please Krishna, who likes everybody to be happy. That's the key thing. Anybody else can add anything more on top of this? Anybody else would like to add? Quietness. Okay. Somshekar Prabhu, would you have anything else to add, either on the questions or just on the lecture today?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Nothing much. Just that one has to gradually move towards the mode of goodness to
Hmm.
overcome this bodily conception. That's a point I take away. Thank you,
Thank
Prabhu.
you.
Hare Krishna.
Me too.
One point, Prabhu, I would like to share
Hmm.
regarding this mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. So, a few days ago, we had the opportunity to have some time with the Nityanand Pran Prabhu. So, on the way to railway station, we were discussing. So, the point was that how do we, so there are mode of ignorance actually is very difficult, goodness, even passion also. How do we deal with that? He said that the mode of passion is comparatively easy to handle than the mode of ignorance because it's close to mode of goodness. You just have to deflect it. It means you just have to navigate. He gave the example. So mode of passion, you have the intensity, you have to work, creation, everything. So it's like there is some fast bowler is there and he's bowling very fast speed. So if you hit him back, you have to put a lot of pressure, a lot of force. But you just have to deflect it. You just have to navigate and it will go to boundary or 4 or 6 or whatever. But when it comes to mode of ignorance, it's very difficult because mode of ignorance actually give little of kind of a joy. For example, okay, who will do the studies? Let me go and take the uh, phone or Netflix, and I'll do the swipe. I'll just scroll on this YouTube Shorts, or like my spouse is in a bad mood. Okay, I won't go to him or her, and make the things okay. Better I'll see the YouTube and everything. So because these things are little relaxing, कुछ effort नहीं डालना पड़ता है, or let me sleep more, and all this work ignorance activities. So he said there it's very difficult because the sense of enjoyment is comes. So when we are in mode of goodness, we should reflect that okay, what are the how next time I can deal when the mode of ignorance actually become prominent. And then when mode of ignorance becomes prominent, then those thoughts are very clear. How do I deal with this? So that's what I thought to share.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. So there are 5 questions, but I think we already had 7, 8. We have less time. Probably on Friday, Thursday, or Friday, we will take those 5 questions. Maybe a session devoted to that only. One last thing from my side. Thank you, Dilip Prabhu, for sharing this exchange with Nityananda Prabhu. From today's class, uh, one point when Maharaj said that when he went to Harvard, he was in awe of the collective constellation of brilliance. Normally, what happens to persons who are especially in the mode of passion is that when any of us who are in the mode of passion, if we see others are far better than us, the first thing we do is how can I become like them? We put an effort that I don't want to be left behind. I I want to be at the same state. So if they are brilliant, I will study more to be brilliant. If they have a high position, I will maneuver myself to move into a high position. If they speak in a particular way, I will also try to speak in that particular way. Uh, in other words, in the US, in the broader sense, it is called as keeping up with the Joneses. That is, if the neighbor has has a big house, I should also have a big house. Neighbor buys some furniture, I should also buy that some piece of furniture. We try to keep up with others. And usually, what happens is, if a person has an iota of Sukriti, they will see where is it taking me to. I'm just running behind, trying to prove to others my own greatness. Or I'm trying to actually not prove my greatness. I am trying to be accepted by others by thinking that if I'm equally great or greater than them, they will accept me. And that is a foolishness. The foolishness is that thinking others are so much focused on me that they are waiting like a movie star when he comes on the screen and everybody's uh, eyes are on the movie star. Like that, everybody is waiting for me. That we are the center of attraction. When one has the good fortune that I am no longer the center of attraction, that I have to please Krishna, then naturally, like the way Maharaj said, oh, they were brilliant. They can be brilliant and they can be great people. So my greatness doesn't depend upon my comparison with others' greatness. Or rather, my value for Krishna doesn't depend upon me in comparison to others. So this non-competitive nature of Maharaj came out very nicely. And instead, being happy with the opportunity to be a part of a spiritual movement of Srila Prabhupada, being uh, given an opportunity to get access to spiritual literature and access to practice spirituality. I'm so happy with it. Yeah, you may have other jewels in this world, but I have this jewel. I'm happy with this jewel. This is that it came out so naturally. It was so effortlessly came out from Maharaj, and he's giving an example for us too on this aspect. That's one thing that I like. It's already 7:12. I think we have to pause here and we'll continue again tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thanks for
Jagat
sharing
Guru
that,
Shri.
Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.